Well,
Beautiful
it's a good morning.
It is. Wednesday at that, the mid-morning. Johnny, what song are you hearing in your head?
I wonder.
Come and see my mother.
Who should come and see your mother?
It's really the new trick in town. Anytime you talk to them, it's like,
come and see my mother.
Is it?
What do you
Then
mean
it
by
just means
what do you mean by new
taking a long
trick?
time to go and see the mother.
Why do you guys always feel like someone asking for commitment is a trick?
But then if you ask me to come and see your mother and you don't know your Ghana Post GPS address, what's the essence? Why should I follow you?
Don't worry, I'll send you coordinates.
Show you. You use the tree
coordinates.
where they sell the cocoa. If she's not there, you look for the coconut seller. I will connect you.
Look at this.
Please don't use Ghana Post as
don't forget the local kiosk.
Even your identity card has not come.
Yes.
And so when you come and see my mother, how sure is she that you are Johnny?
Okay,
who you say you are?
so let's say that that is commitment.
Oh, please.
No, I mean asking for that. I mean we've been to a certain level. Now let's take the next step. Come and see my mother. That will be problem.
And it's only right. Why would you meet someone outside and you don't want to know the family? You should know where the person comes from, who they're related to, what's going on.
Even for regular,
just a friend. At least I grew up, my father taught me that it's just nice to introduce your friends to family. So if they also see them outside, they don't just say, so, excuse me. At least they can mention the name.
So
even especially in this security, situation that we have. As much as possible, you should let the people you have.
to let you guys know that
we've always known. She just put it in song. That's all.
Okay.
Let's put it in song.
Okay, good morning.
But guys, I mean, good morning to all of you. If it's your birthday, enjoy it and make sure that it's worth it. But I've been thinking, so there are people out there who keep mounting pressure on other people. Go and get married. Go and get married. How do you always feel about it? Yeah,
I mean, it's been happening for a long. It doesn't even have to be people. There's societal structures that sort of automatically make, especially women, feel like you get to a certain age. They call it expiry date, which I think is so wrong. And that you have to get married at a certain point. You have to.
Or beware of dogs.
Exactly.
When they are young, it's beware of dogs. Then when they grow up to a certain point, broilers and layers for sale. When you get there, you find no broiler. You find
but honestly, I'm a Christian, and I think that it is not every woman or man who should get married. That's
the Bible says so.
The Bible says
the Bible says
Is it the extravagant wedding that is preventing people from committing?
To some extent.
I think it's a two-edged thing.
It's you.
It can be an extravagant one that's actually also attracting some people to get married. It's all flashy. Get on Instagram. Trust me. If you like those things, you want to get married tomorrow.
But I still stand by the fact that it also comes back to the individual, because if you're bent on marrying, you love this person, you want to spend the rest of your life with, you don't really care about the other people who are supposed to come and see it as a fanfare or a party. For me, it's a ceremony.
They are looking for a wedding, but you are looking
I'm
for
looking
marriage.
for marriage. So really, I don't care if we marry in a bedroom, four square room, and there are just two people. So far as we agree, we the two people involved agree and we are happy. That's what matters.
But that's what is lacking. Right now, you have people who are so fixated on what everybody out there thinks that it's putting pressure on them. Yes.
Credit. Loans from banks to go and get married.
But if the Bank of Ghana takes over your bank, are you able to marry?
If you don't have a loan,
may not be able
how do you marry?
Maybe
your uncle owns a bank and you go and say,
your account is there and the Bank of Ghana takes over the bank and assures you that don't worry, your money is safe. And yet, I can tell you the customers of UT Bank and the other one,
Capital Bank,
up to today, some of them are unable to access their salaries.
The ATMs are still a bit shaky.
Their ATMs are not working. They need ID cards to go through.
But why must we have that situation?
And yet, the Bank of Ghana keeps assuring that, hey, customers, don't worry, your money is safe with Unibank. But I'm wondering how safe it is.
I know, but anyway, we pray the people.
Oh, it's not about prayer. It's not about prayer. Stop.
No, I doubt the people who have money there are looking at prayer right now.
Stop.
Certainly, because it's a reality. It's going to happen. And so at this point, my hand just goes out to them because we've had too many, people lose layoffs and people losing their jobs, and they still haven't even found their feet. And so
today you are giving your heart out. How many hearts?
Oh, Jesus has given me many hearts. People, it's time for the news.
Well, we're talking about the banking industry, so we're delving into the Unibank issue as well as other issues from the health front, education, as well as business. Welcome back to New Day. It's morning news, and let's start off from the banking sector, which has basically been making news. And Bank of Ghana has effective yesterday appointed KPMG as official administrator for Unibank. The central bank says that the appointment of KPMG is aimed at saving Unibank from immediate collapse and prevent potential depositors and other creditors. Now, the measure is to ensure that the financial conditions of the bank does not create further risks for the entire financial system.
This is not an issue that started today. As I said, since 2015, I got here in 2017. So the people who were here before me had problems. And these are things that we have inherited. These are the legacy issues of weak economic management and weak supervisory standards, right? So there are problems that we have inherited that we have to fix. And we worked with them in the last year to try to rebuild capital, right? And this is what we tried to do for most of last year. So unfortunately, some of the data that we were given were apparently incorrect. So we have had to revise some of the assessments that were made in September. And since October, November, we have been having several meetings trying to give the Ghanaian indigenous banks an opportunity to continue operating. We are sensitive of that fact also. So we were not quick to act because we realized the importance of keeping financial institutions in the hands of Ghanaians. And this really would account for why, as a central bank, we are time before reaching this point. As I said, we are not liquidating the bank. We are saving the bank. We are just replacing the management team, so it's going to be an ongoing bank. And at the end of the day, we expect that the new team there, KPMG, if they are able to turn the bank around, we will have to ensure that it's given back to Ghanaian investors. We are not going to obviously approve a transaction which would mean handing Unibank to foreign investors. I think that is quite clear. I can give you my commitment on that. Whether action will be taken against the outgoing management, it's too early to say. The new team would go in there, then they would try to assess the state of the bank, the assets and liabilities of the bank, and see, if they can try to understand the reasons for why the bank continues to have the capital deficiency and liquidity problems. So it's too early to say.
Now, let's still stay on this issue. And TV3 could confirm as at late afternoon yesterday, when this press statement was released, and that there was heavy security at the Unibank head office in Accra. Now, this was after the announcement of the takeover by the Bank of Ghana. Now, this, as I said, was following the press release by the Bank of Ghana on Tuesday afternoon, that's late Tuesday afternoon, indicating that the Bank of Ghana had exercised its powers to take over the institution per the Act 930. Now, as it was effective from Tuesday afternoon, as at the time it was announced, that's the 20th of March 2018, and they had also appointed the KPMG as the official administrator for Unibank Ghana Limited, that's Unibank. Now, TV3 then reported that there was heavy armed security men, including men in military attire, that were guarding the premises as at about 5 p.m. That's the close of the working day. Now, efforts to speak to any officials then proved futile. Now, we'll be keeping you up to date on the happenings on this particular story as it keeps trending and as it keeps developing. So just stay tuned to our subsequent bulletins and we'll keep you posted on that. Now, still in the banking sector, banking consultant and lecturer Dr. Richmond Tiahene now revealed on TV3's business analysis program, Business Focus, that some more commercial banks in the country are on liquidity support, but commended the Bank of Ghana for its efforts to strengthen the banking sector.
most of the savings and loans are in crisis. Likewise, at least from reliable source, 5 of the universal banks are also in serious trouble, where the government, Bank of Ghana, is giving them liquidity support. Other than that, they will go like Capital Bank and UT Bank.
I mean, that same story of support was what was happening before UT Bank actually went into this particular state.
LLOR, lenders of last resort support. So clearing, they cannot even possibly meet clearing charges. So they are being supported. Very reliable source.
Now, Parliament has approved a loan agreement of 13 million euros to finance the establishment of a deposit protection scheme in Ghana. Now, the scheme is to protect depositors from potential losses and enable the Bank of Ghana promote a stable market-based financial system.
The loan has a repayment period of 30 years at an interest rate of 0.75% and commitment fee of 0.25% per annum. The Finance Committee observed that the fund will help reduce disruptions in the financial system arising from banking distress and bank failure and also contribute to financial stability. It will also increase confidence and trust in the financial sector while providing depositor protection. To ensure the sustainability of the scheme, banks and specialized deposit-taking institutions licensed by the Bank of Ghana would be required to make premium payments into the fund. The Depositors Protection Fund is part of the Deposit Protection Bill 2015, passed by Parliament in 2016, to protect depositors from unforeseen circumstances that may result in loss of funds. Members from both sides supported the idea. However, MP for Bolgatanga Central, Isaac Adongo, noted this would not have been necessary if the Bank of Ghana had been strict in its supervisory role.
That is the primary guidance for ensuring that banks and financial institutions do not fail. It is because when the Bank of Ghana is unable to function this way and allows these banks to go down that we have called upon to look for the money in order to protect depositors and not make sure that we don't have bank run aids.
But Chairman of the Finance Committee had some clarifications.
What we are doing now is approving a loan that is going to be used as the seed fund for the deposit protection scheme. The honorable member on this floor all this while has been arguing about the deposit protection insurance and how unfair the insurance scheme is and matters that were dealt with when he was a committee member in 2016.
The Bank of Ghana annually pays even dividends to government. The Minister for Finance knows that. So why will you take this and say Bank of Ghana have it? The government of Ghana is guaranteeing this for you. They must have an on-lending agreement with the Bank of Ghana. This should not go for free.
Mr. Speaker, I will urge honorable members to look at the positive side for the purpose for which this loan is before this House.
Meanwhile, Parliament has also approved the formula for the disbursement of the National Health Insurance Fund for the year 2018. The authority expects to receive over 2.375 million cedis from the NHIL, SNITs and other sources to be able to execute its mandate for the year.
Now, Ghana is to give the United States of America unimpeded access to its territory and facilities following a defense agreement reached between the two countries. The agreement is yet to receive Parliament's ratification, but would grant the U.S. military and civilian personnel a wide range of privileges, immunities and tax exemptions as those of administrative and technical staff of a diplomatic mission. Komla Kluche has more in the following report.
On Tuesday, February 19, 2008, former U.S. President George Bush put to rest what was widely speculated as a military base in Ghana after Ghanaians expressed outrage.
We do not contemplate adding new bases. In other words, the purpose of this is not to add military bases. I know there's rumors in Ghana. All Bush is coming to do is try to convince you to put a big military base here. That's baloney.
Cabinet at its 28th meeting on March 8, 2008 approved the agreement, following which the Defense Minister Dominic Nitto has since March 14, 2008 asked Parliament to give effect to the agreement. In the leaked confidential document, the United States contractors shall not be liable to pay tax or similar charge assets within Ghana. In connection with this agreement, it stated personnel of the U.S. military can also enter and exit Ghana with a wide range of documents, including an identification card or individual travel orders. Per the agreement, the U.S. will use Ghana as a base to facilitate, among other things, training of its military, staging and deployment of U.S. forces aircraft, refueling and landing and recovery of aircraft. Ghana will be mandated to provide unimpeded access to and use of agreed facilities and areas to U.S. forces, contractors and other staffs. This new agreement, TV3 guarded, is a renewal of the commitment of both the U.S. and Ghana to an expired agreement, the Acquisition and Cross-Servicing Agreement, which was entered into on April 28, 2015. It is intended to strengthen the defense relationship between the two countries and also to address shared security challenges in the African region, including those relating to the protection of government personnel and facilities. Government has confirmed the defense agreement exists between Ghana and the U.S. but will not confirm the authenticity of this document. Defense Minister Dominic Nitto has denied the establishment of a military base in Ghana.
The United States of America is not, and let me repeat, is not establishing a military base in Ghana. At all, far from that. A military base, it is not true. And they do intend to establish a military base in Ghana.
Security experts have already raised concerns on the implications this will bring to Ghana.
It looks quite grim if the officialdom comes to confirm that this agreement has been signed and sealed and dusted. Then we will have to interrogate and ask them why. Because I would say that since independence, Ghana has really not fought any war. We have, no country has invaded us, and we have not invaded any country. And so I would be wondering if, yes, we need to retool our military and get our military trained. But are we doing that, hoping that we will be able to fight off another country when we are invaded, or what are we doing that for? So we need to ask a lot of questions of our leaders, ask them why now, why are we doing this? Is there the need? So we need to know.
There has been terrorist activities in neighboring African countries, and the deployment of forces here in Ghana, many say, will help fight.
I do think that he is more visionary than some recent Ghanaian leaders.
Already, President Akufo-Addo, in his last visit to the U.S., pledged Ghana's support to the U.S. to fight terrorism. The confidence of the Americans in Ghana has been heightened.
Ghana is considered a level 1 threat for crime and for security broadly on a scale of 4.
Okay.
So it's at the minimum level. I feel very safe here.
Komla Kluche, TV3 News, Accra.
Now let's stay on this issue, and Defense Minister Dominic Nitto has clarified the U.S. government is not building a military base in Ghana. Now this was after he laid before Parliament a paper for approval, an agreement between the government of Ghana and the United States on defense cooperation. The agreement, when ratified, will reaffirm the shared commitment of both countries to peace and stability.
The paper was laid by the Defense Minister Dominic Nitto.
Agreement between the government of the Republic of Ghana and government of the United States of America on defense cooperation, the status of the United States forces, access to and use of agreed facilities, areas in the Republic of Ghana.
The Speaker referred it to the Defense and Interior Committee and the Constitutional and Legal Affairs Committee for consideration. Some members suggested the Foreign Affairs Committee be added, but the Speaker disagreed. If approved by Parliament, the agreement will ensure access to and use of agreed facilities and areas by U.S. forces within Ghana, wide-ranging tax exemptions, and U.S. military to use Ghana as a base of staging and deploying forces. This will also involve the facilitation of training, including maintaining unit readiness, continued exercises, and other military opportunities that Ghana stands to benefit from. But this has ignited public debate, with a section of the public kicking against it. Defense Minister Dominic Nitu clarified the U.S. was not building a military base.
There is no military base. The U.S. have no intention to have a military base, and anybody who says this military base is mischievous, is misleading the people of Ghana, and just trying to raise tension in this country. There's nothing like military base, not at all. If an American soldier comes here, what is his status? And then the use of some facilities at the airport, full stop.
He added the agreement is in the best interest of Ghana.
Over the next 2 years, in the form of a grant and training, and the fact that the Americans will be giving us a lot of aid, which is in excess of $20 million, that I know for a fact. But I'm also saying to you that that is not the reason why anybody will want to have an agreement with a partner.
The two committees are expected to deliberate on the issues, including the financial implications, and advise the House accordingly.
All right, so this is happening right now at the front of TV3, and bonded and posted nurses of the School of Allied Health are picketing at TV3, the front, and Johnny Hughes is standing by to give us details of exactly what they are demanding.
These are 2016 environmental health students or graduates who are agitating for, okay, tone down for me, guys. Tone down for me, guys. Thank you. Tone down for me, guys. Let's talk to one of our representatives, and they've been picketing here since yesterday at the forecourt of TV3. Good morning, Alassane. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, sir.
You are representing all these people. Tell me, why are you picketing here?
Yeah, we are in demand of our appointment letters urgently.
You who?
We the posted hygiene graduates. We graduated 2016 together with our seniors, 2011, 2012. Up to now, we are sitting in the house without being posted.
I know that you had an earlier agreement and you were at the ministry or local government. Yes, what became of it?
Yeah, we came, that was on the 11th of July 2017, in demand of our appointment letters as well as the financial clearance. They said that we should give them ample time. We'll give them to the extent up to 5th September. We didn't hear anything. We emerged there again. In demand, besieged in demand of financial clearance again. They assure us that we should give them another time. Somewhere down the line, on October 27th, they came out with a Public Service Commission form and said we should go through that processes. And when we heard this, we quickly rushed to the Chief Director at the local government service to inquire from them as to why they said we should apply. They said that they just want our details.
Are you bonded? Were you bonded?
Sign a bond with government. Even on that form, they access whether we've signed a bond with government or any organization, and we said yes, we signed a bond with government. So all of a sudden they started to come out with messages that they are calling us for interview. They called only a few people.
How many did they call?
They called about 152, according to the head of service. They called 150.
Out of how many?
Out of 560. 560, the whole entire graduates of School of Hygiene, the 3 schools of hygiene. We're not even up to 1,000. So according to the head of service, he told us that only 100 people clearance that government can secure for now. Which is, we can't, and we don't understand.
Why don't you understand?
We don't understand simply because we want to ask His Excellency, assuming if he can afford to achieve or secure financial clearance to over 17,000 nurses, to recruit them, how can he not secure to 500 people sanitation officers? So it's unfair treatment. So we feel dejected and rejected by His Excellency.
Tell me the essence of a sanitation officer.
Yeah, our main agenda, our main duties, we have so many duties, but we are to train professionally to become to change the environment, to change the people within the living condition. Whether working place or where you are living, we have to educate the public, go around the veteran points, educate the public how to keep the environment clean.
All right, thank you very much. I thank you. So that's it. The 2016 graduates of the School of Hygiene, they're demanding for immediate posting. They say all the promises that have been made to them as falling out, and they are not happy about it. Live from the forecourt of TV3, this is Johnny Hughes for NewDay.
All right, so we'll be keeping you up to date of exactly what happens of this particular exercise and in our subsequent bulletin. Well, that's how we wrap up morning news here on New Day on TV3. Don't forget, you can always get interactive with us via our social media platforms, Instagram, Twitter, as well as Facebook. And we're also live on DSTV channel 279. My name is Solis Rose Quarte. New Day continues after this. Stay with us.
Welcome back. Let's do some newspaper headlines now. Of course, you know Unibank will be in the stories. We'll start off with the finder. Bank of Ghana, Unibank is insolvent because despite 2.2 billion Ghana cedi liquidity support from Bank of Ghana in past 2 years, they still couldn't keep afloat. But government also clears 1 billion Ghana cedis NHIS outstanding debt. Then the president urges governments to position for aviation boom. Also, a banking consultant in the person of Nana Otoe Champion has said Unibank's fate hangs on KPMG's probe. Then finally, U.S. Embassy is saying there's no plan to establish a military base in Ghana. Those are the stories carried by the finder this morning.
It's a mouthful, yeah?
It is.
But Bank of Ghana is top on the list.
It is.
And I think the U.S. base. But people have said that, look, perhaps this may be another swerve or U-turn, if you will, a suave swerve to get our minds off the military base thing and for us to all focus on the Bank of Ghana thing. I have an opinion. I say, look, the Bank of Ghana is supposed to perform a supervisory role. If the statement was released earlier, is anything to go by, then the Bank of Ghana itself has been lenient, too lenient or negligent, if you will, for lack of a better expression, in dealing with these banks that they're supposed to supervise. Because if you give a caveat that the bank should not offer loans to persons who are not qualified to get loans, because it will affect its overall, operations. And you watch month on month, they present their reports, sometimes even weekly. They present their reports to you, and you are able to trace and identify that these things have been done wrongly, as you said, it should not be done. Why do you hold on for a whole year? I'm asking. Because people trust in the Bank of Ghana, which is why they walk into any commercial bank authenticated by the Bank of Ghana to go and put their money there. So if the Bank of Ghana now is telling us that the reports were doctored by who?
Certain figures given them.
Yes, when did they find out? How did they find out? Okay, so doesn't the Bank of Ghana itself have internal auditors? That so every figure that is given to them or every report that is given to them every week, every month, they take it hook, line, and sink. I'm not saying the Bank of Ghana should not perform their role. We want them to perform their duty
but it's
at 9:30. Yes, but let us feel that we are protected. And Bright said something earlier in the morning. The customers of UT Bank, the Capital Bank, I mean, some even here at TV3 are struggling to assess their salaries and all of that.
And yet the Bank of Ghana
assures us all the time that this is going to be well. What is it that's going to be in the case of Unibank? Is it going to be any different? That's the concern.
Johnny,
that's the worry. I'm worried.
Yes, I am also worried because I might not have a lot of expertise in issues of banking, but from the information that the Bank of Ghana itself is churning out, there are more questions to be answered. You see, the bank says that we are taking over, or yes, because one, Unibank operations efficiency is down. Two, the bank is going against certain ethics of banking. Then the question to ask is, are these enough justification to take over a bank? Can't the Bank of Ghana sit down with this bank, okay, the managers, the directors, and do a boardroom thing and get things back on track? Is it enough to justify a takeover? Now, I watched the governor of the Bank of Ghana on TV, and I am not happy because, see, he said, look, it didn't happen today. It happened some years ago. I came in 2017. Between the time he came into office and now, is he saying that everything Unibank has done is according to the law? He told us that they have been working with Unibank for a year to correct this. Now, when his officers went in, how come his officers were in and yet Unibank continued giving out loans, therefore affecting the bank's capital adequacy ratio? I think these are all questions that demand answers. So to say that I was not here. I came in 2017, and the rot started some time back by those who were here before I came. For me, I don't think it's anything he should be talking about. I think what he should be telling us is when he came in, what he did to stop the mess at Unibank, so that we know. And then the bank assuring customers that all is well. All is well where?
Yeah.
But right.
We know customers. So yes,
exactly.
Today, as I'm talking to you now, there's one person I know whose salary from UT for the past 6 months is still there. She can't access it because she needs to do certain IDs. The ATMs are not working, so she has to go through some processes with a whole lot, and then we are sure that all is well.
It certainly isn't well. You know, the confusion even comes, like Johnny rightly said, the supervisory role. I have a problem because I would want to know, Bright said, we're not experts there, but sitting back and listening to what is going on, particularly when it's happened to UT and Capital Bank not too long ago, I'm wondering, at what point does Bank of Ghana say, I have seen your books, they don't tally, and so now we are coming in full force to take your books and audit it? Because if you say your people are on the ground and you go there and they don't allow you to see what the real state of affairs is, at what point then did you get to know the state of affairs to go in and say, now we're giving you administrative people to take over and manage? And if what Bright is saying, I agree with him. At what point then did you ever have a sit down to say, we are actually here to help you, and so let us take over some roles, because we've seen that you're handicapped when it comes to regulating your affairs, because maybe you had sister companies where you have to give loans, soft loans and all that. Because up until then, that 1 year or 2 years from 2015 up until now seems to be very blurred in my mind. If Bank of Ghana was actively working, you said then CAR went down twice, from 12 point something to now 24. So during that time, you're warning them. And it's state money that goes back to support them when it comes to liquidity. It's our money. And so up until the point where they won't be able to even pay back. Right now, you're going to now wait. Think 6 months, you're going to give KPMG the chance to try and reverse everything that, Unibank has done. If this happened earlier, could we have been able to, resolve all this rather than pumping money into it? Because it's not free. That's what baffles me about all this.
It's a bit more murkier when it comes just days after the supposed takeover by Unibank of ADB. Some 51%, rights and all of that. It comes right on the back of it. And yesterday I was so shocked when I read the release from the Bank of Ghana. I was asking, okay, so what else don't we know? And what else are we not being told? Because if I'm a customer of Unibank, I'll be alarmed. Based if I'm a worker, I'll be alarmed as well. Based on the experiences I've had from other takeovers and all what has happened in the past year. UT and Capital Bank is the freshest of our memories. So I'll be worried if I'm a worker there. I'll be worried if I have my money there. And I will not buy the Bank of Ghana's explanation. You know why? Because the Bank of Ghana will tell us that some microfinance organizations are not certified by them, and yet they don't move in to close it down, but they just warn the clients.
Until our monies are
look at what happened in the case of the DKM guys. People still don't have their investments, and the Bank of Ghana is supposed to have supervised that particular activity. So I don't know. Let me just...
But anyway, let's also talk about the U.S. military
The supervision is weak.
It is, Johnny. There's no two ways about that. But let's delve into the
Dr. Addison
U.S. embassy
that
issue.
Indeed, supervision was weak. That's what he said.
Yeah. But now he's on board. We expect him to do more. But U.S. Embassy also, I mean, they've issued the fact that there's no plan to establish the military base in Ghana. Is it that it's a forgotten deal? Is there something really... I mean, I keep saying, when these things hit headlines, there's no smoke without fire. There's no smoke without fire.
Or there's no fire without smoke.
No, there's no smoke without fire. You see the smoke and then you know there was a fire somewhere. So
or you see the fire and you
likewise, the Unibank issue. When Unibank started making headlines, it was the fact that they were going to take over ADB. And so yesterday when they hit the headlines again, just on the flip side, it wasn't too surprising because at least you heard about it. Likewise, this U.S. military base thing, I think there's some truth in it. As to what the full details are is what we don't know. And so I won't be hasty to conclude. But I think what Ghanaians fear is the fact that then we're giving our sovereignty to U.S. when we do this. I think it is true because we know how the U.S. military works.
I spoke with some security people and they tell me that this may not be a new arrangement. It may be an arrangement that's stayed on for a long time.
Right.
Only that what perhaps we're giving off this time round is way too much.
Right.
But then regarding sovereignty, I'm wondering, okay, so Mr. Donald Trump calls us whatever, and now he wants what? Military collaboration in our country, in the same place that he said is whatever. Our leaders thinking about it. Then I want to also ask, in the issue of the Gitmo 2, the MPP at the time in opposition made a big case and said that the government of the day, which was John Mohammed's government, had taken a nice handshake from the US.
Right.
Is it also fair at this point to ask the same question? What kind of handshake came with this deal? Is it a fair question? I don't know, but I'm asking. So is there some financial benefit that we get? Because what you are going to get is unlimited access. And if you Google up or look up base, what a military base is, it tells you what it does. Where they store their stuff and train people as well. It gives them unlimited access.
You don't need numbers to
you don't need it
to set up a military.
You don't need it. I mean,
some argument.
You get the point. So ammunitions, they could be testing new ammunitions here, okay? They could be mixing with our people, and I've seen some of them drive some of their vehicles around. I've seen some. I saw a white man. I don't know whether I was working at Kofi Annan or Military Academy and Training School, but I saw him in a vehicle with, you know, it's not a green vehicle, but I saw the military number plate. You know how they have a black number plate with GA? I saw it. I saw it myself. I think it was not this year, sometime last year. I saw it myself in traffic. And I was thinking, okay, so how do these things work out? I'm worried again. I must say I'm worried.
Well, Johnny, for me, my worry is in the fact that Ghana has all this while been a member of the non-aligned movement. We neither will tow to the west or to the east. And for me, if you take a look at what is happening on the international front, where Vladimir Putin has won another term of 6 years in office. The West seem not to be happy because of the spy poisoning issue, which they are fingering Russia. Now, the West and the East are beginning to see that friction again. We have decided to stay in the middle. We are non-aligned. This is coming up. It is putting us in a way, for me, that is dangerous. We seem to be now getting to the West. The defense minister is denying nothing is happening. He said that it's an age-old agreement. What he did not answer is why it's being taken to Parliament now, because the so-called 20-year arrangement is not being in Parliament. We are told that some indemnity clauses are in there. That is why it had to be taken to Parliament. So something different is happening. So I am hoping that at the end of it all, it is not a matter of Ghana saying that we are now linking our close to the West, the United States and its allies, so that the Eastern countries will see us as enemies. But I'm hoping that whatever it is, as the defense minister is saying, we'll get some soldiers trained, we'll get some equipment and all that. At the end of it all, our sovereignty is not touched, but we remain Ghana, a strong Ghana.
From what I know and from what the experts have said, when we go for peacekeeping, okay, the ammunition that is given to our soldiers to use, we get some of it back.
Of course.
And look at the frequency with which we go on
almost
those
all the time
peacekeeping. So we almost always get some of these things back. Are we so much in a dire situation that we need to do this deal at all costs?
Maybe.
Ghana beyond 8 on my mind. In any case, let's run. And we're talking rule of law, the Afro Barometer on rule of law. And some of you have raised questions about how even the law enforcers mismanage and misapply the law. The CDD has been running a test, and George Quinn is out there ranting with the folks on the street of Accra.
There cannot be equal justice where the kind of trial a man gets depends on the amount of money he has. And this, of course, sums up the concerns of some Ghanaians who think the rich are above the law. Indications from the latest Afrobarometer are that, majority of Ghanaians do not have full confidence in the rule of law to handle the upper classes of society fairly. How did we get here? This is Daily Rant. Let's keep talking.
This is Nima.
And I've witnessed a lot of youth in the ghettos being arrested for smoking one roll. And then they are jailed 10 years, 20 years. Yeah. But we also hear a lot of cases in the media where government officials or politicians steal gargantuan money. And either they go free or their sentences are reduced. So some of these things are examples, make people conclude that the rich are some way above the law.
As long as there is corruption, the rich will always be above the law. Because, for instance, the NAS investigation on judges, you can see clearly what they take. You understand? And people taking coats, ships, a lot of things to what? To swing judgment. So I think that as far as corruption is concerned, the rich will always be above the law.
Well, for me, I don't agree with that. So far as the thing is being in the law that if you commit, you have to be sentenced. Though they look whether the thing is high or low, but the law does not say that. So far as you are being arrested, what you're supposed to be giving, So I mean, I don't agree with them that the cashiers are above the law.
Master.
No.
Master, even in the United States, even the current president of the United States, Donald Trump, filed for bankruptcy, and he was left with what? Helicopter and yacht. These things play out. You understand? When you are rich, people take favor from you.
You get some influence.
You have influence here and there. And then,
you may have influence.
Listen, being above the law, you can sit in the house and commit whatever you want to commit and go scot-free.
Fine, even though they have influence or they being rich, yes, they have a big influence, and that is what is destroying society. I'm saying this because you heard of the Legon issue where a student shot a lady and she died. I heard recently the guy was released, and then the family were pleading that why should someone kill? Because they have money. That money was used. You see, those are some of the things, like, I don't know, we call ourselves to be democratic. We are in a democratic era where we have the rule of law to work for us, but it is not working simply because some people stealing state's money, becoming wealthy in the society, and then having negative influence on us, and then they think they are above the law. It is in the system. I was at court, I started going to the court 7 months now for a particular case. I'm telling you this, I've been to that court 7 months in a row. The person I took, the accused person, has never stepped a foot there. And then they keep postponing the case, next month, until recently when I got to the court and I was like,
fuel and all that.
You understand? I was there and I was like, why? I come, the person is not here. When they give bench warrant, the judge was asking me, the first question the judge asked was, I should be careful, I'm in the court. Yes, and I'm like, I am talking, I'm talking for something I'm experiencing, and you are telling me I'm in the courtroom. They said it's an act of disrespect. Until they realized I was in a communication school, and then those people, how do they call them? The 3 people who sit in front of the judge. The clerk, one came out and they was telling me that I shouldn't take. That's how it is a process. They will issue a bench warrant and then.
It's more like you are showing them the work they should.
So if I didn't even have to put something like I'm into the media, I would do something for the media. Like it would have been a foolish case.
You are wasting your time. If Livingston were to be famous and rich, this will not go far. No, you understand?
No.
Listen, relax, don't shake. Listen, Master. You're back and forth. Assuming that if you call the clerks, give somebody something. You understand? You don't issue the bench warrant without even you coming to the court.
I don't believe.
You understand? And I'm telling you, Livingston, that see, in this country that we are in, see, the rich will always get out. Even in this world, the rich will always get away with everything and anything.
No,
so long as
because even according to the report, 67% of Ghanaians think that maybe if these rich people do anything, they go unpunished.
They
go like you leave them.
Yeah, the issue is not about they go unpunished. Either the punishment is not that severe, or it is limited to some extent. We live in Ghana, in a nation where issues crop up and within a day or two, it dies off because we are going to expect another one to come in the next 2 days. Just today we are hearing about US, whatever establishment in Ghana. Come on, so there's a scripture in the Bible that says, the rich ruleth over the poor, and the borrower is subject to the lender. When it comes to influence, the rich will always have influence and authority over the poor. But to say they are above the law, that is what I disagree.
And I'm telling you that.
Yes, you may have your way to some extent, but the law is always above everybody. See, there will come a time that
the law is written by man.
That is what the law.
Yeah, the man is written by man.
The law is written by man. And definitely those who've written the law have a way. Have a way around the law.
There are loopholes.
You see, have a law.
That's why we go for amendment.
Let me tell you something. My emphasis BNC. So you say because of skinny, always scanty. On my running to me now. And a year you been
but I think it's what it is, but it's like he's failing to accept it. Trust me, it's like this is what the majority of Ghanaians are saying, and they know it's what like that. It's not supposed to.
Yeah, but it's like that.
No. Then you have to
but it's more like that. Yeah, it's more.
It's like that. So accept it.
No, it's not like that. Like the way George is saying, it's more like that. But what I'm saying is that it's supposed to be like that. No one. Me, what I'm sitting on is no one is above the law. If the person did the thing. The person that the
but do you believe in rule of law?
I believe in rule of law.
Do you believe, let's say, me and you, there's a case, we go to court. Do you believe that it will go in your favor? Like, it will be fairly, the trial will be fair?
Yeah.
You believe that?
Yeah. Woyomi. We can't arrest Woyomi simply because.
But he's paying the money. He's paying.
Would I get the same opportunity as Woyomi?
No, but what is paying the money?
No, I understand. But I take it is me. Will I get the same favor or opportunity Woyomi is getting now?
Maybe who knows? Maybe you might.
You get it? No, we have the rule of law. The only problem is that we are, like the way the ex-president said, Rollins, we have people with babies with sharp teeth. That is the issue with Ghana. We are not exercising it well. If you bring money right now, they are Charlie. Even if they take, I'll pull it so that we. See, that's the only problem. There are two types of law. There's a rich law. And the poor man's
who made that law?
Who made that? Yes.
In your own mindset, you know that where you are going, you've lost in advance because the man has money more than you. That's why they ask you out of court settlement. They use big grammar, out of court settlement. Go and take something and just leave this matter. Otherwise, you lose.
According to Hugo Black, he says there cannot be equal justice where the kind of child a man gets depends on the amount of money he has. And so it's more like it really, defines or affirms this whole Afro-barometer thing.
Yeah. See, Ghanaians are speaking. The ordinary people are speaking. You understand?
Yeah, the people are speaking.
The ordinary people, they know that, see, Massa, we are at a disadvantage. Anything that you do, Massa, whether you like it or yes, it will go against you.
They interviewed about 2,400 people. So at least it's captured, levels of Ghanaians.
Let's just assume that I'm using a V8 car. Your man's Colora, and we are driving. And let me say, I bypass a traffic light, red, and I just drive through.
It's an offense.
It's an offense.
Road offense, yeah.
Because I'm using V8. Let this guy do the same thing. Whether the police will not take bribe, you will take him to the police later. Me, because of my V8, because I'm nobody, but I'm using V8.
Yeah, so that may be selective justice, but it doesn't
what is selective justice?
It doesn't mean the person is above the law.
Yes. The person is above the law,
but it is because the person knows that when he doesn't know who is in that car.
No, and then
if you commit crime, you need to be arrested. You need to be punished for the crime you committed. It doesn't matter whether you are ordinary Ghanaian or you are a rich Ghanaian. So some of those researches, so those comments, it keeps creating problems to us. It is affecting us. Rather, let's educate the public on what we need. Sometimes we go to the court the wrong way. You shout. That is the problem because we don't know how to go. We don't know the process.
Let me say it's not trying to accept the thing.
Whether you cry, whether you laugh, whether you weep, roll on the floor, even in mad, it will not change. It's the same thing. The same way, the status quo remain the same. You can't, that the rich will always have an advantage over you.
Who is the rich?
Who is the rich?
Above the law.
Not above the law, but more like advantage over the poor.
Sure.
Yes, but it's not about the law.
No, it's not about the
even going to heaven, there will be protocol.
Yes.
I'm telling you the truth. Even going to heaven, there will be protocol. No. See, there's protocol in almost everything. It's true. See, George, if there should be a program, a media program out there, and then I come there with you, the kind of reception you will get will not be the same reception I will have.
Oh, you think so?
Oh, you asking whether I think so? No, it is normal. Everywhere the Bible, James talks about partiality in church. James talk about partiality.
When are human beings, this is about.
So let me tell you something.
The subject of discussion is that the rich are not above the law.
We are never.
They are not above the law. We are not using the law. But I think the people that they interviewed, 2,400, they have their reasons and reservations.
They represent us.
At least they've spoken for, let's say, the voiceless.
I'm telling you that the rich will always have an advantage, both in the law, both social, wherever you meet, the rich will always be above the law. For that one there, you take it or leave it. But for me there, no amount of education will raise these things, because already the mentality is there, the mindset is there. So all we can pray is that let our motto be help us, freedom and justice.
So how well do you believe in the rule of law? Majority of people think, the rich are above the law. Let's know what you think about this. Log on to our social media platforms. On Facebook, it's News on TV3, and on Twitter, it's our News TV3. We came to you from Nima here at Accra. Thanks for watching, and keep watching NewDay.
Right, and welcome back once again. Time now to take a look at the newspapers and what they are reporting this morning. Almost every one of them has the Bank of Ghana taking over of Unibank story. And again, the military base issue, the paper laid in Parliament yesterday, is also on almost every newspaper this morning. But on the Bank of Ghana Unibank saga, we'll have a later on discussion when we get some officials from the University of Ghana Business School in the studio. So we'll quickly start with the military base issue this morning. And the Daily Graphic puts it this way, that Ghana-US Defense Cooperation Agreement laid in Parliament. And the Daily Guide says no U.S. military base. That's the defense minister talking there. And Defense Minister allays fears no U.S. military base in Ghana, but APAC cautions don't mortgage our sovereignty. That's the Today newspaper there. And then the Statesman has a story, no U.S. military base in Ghana, embassy insists. So that's the story so far. My guest to do the talking this morning, a former member of Parliament for the Ablekuma Central constituency, a member of the NDC, Honorable Theophilus Echai is here. Good morning.
Yeah, good
Hope
morning.
you're good.
Yeah.
You've been missing for some time.
Yeah.
Okay. Welcome back.
Yeah, thank
and
you.
then the Deputy Chief Executive of the Ghana Export Promotion Authority, a member of the NPP, is also here. Good morning, too.
Good morning, Brian.
Hope you're great.
I'm doing very well.
Right. We met over the weekend somewhere.
Yes, we did.
All
Do
right.
you want me to disclose
No. We'll all right. So let's start this morning. Daily Graphic has, of course, Export Promotion was running some programs. So that one you're free to talk about it.
And what were you doing there?
No, the usual journalism. All right. Now, let's look at this story. An agreement between the government of Ghana and the United States of America on defense cooperation was laid in Parliament yesterday. That's according to Daily Graphic. Now, we're told by the defense minister that who laid the agreement, after which the Speaker of Parliament, Professor Erod Michael Kwe, referred it to the Committee on Defense and Interior and the Constitutional, Legal and Parliamentary Affairs for consideration and report. Mr. Nitiwil, who spoke to the media, denied suggestions that the U.S. was establishing a base in Ghana per the agreement. Rather, he said the agreement was for U.S. military personnel who would be training Ghanaian soldiers and policemen to use some facilities around the Kotoka International Airport. The USA has no intention to have a military base, and anybody who says there is a military base is mischievous and is misleading the people of Ghana and just trying to raise tension. There's nothing like a military base in Ghana, not at all. This is from the defense minister. He goes on to list some benefits of the agreement, which I quickly want to take one or two. On page 44, that's where the story continues on the Daily Graphic. And he says that for the next 2 years, Ghana would receive in aid in excess of $20 million from the USA in areas of training and grant. But he goes on to say that Ghana did not enter into the agreement because of the monetary benefit, but based on its desire to have a strategic partner. That's the story so far. Eric, let me start with you. Are the concerns of people, for instance, the Member of Parliament for Busa South, Dr. Clement Apake, suggesting that he thinks that government is likely to mortgage the sovereignty of Ghana per this agreement. Is that what you see too?
Well, thank you very much. Good morning to you, to my good honorable friend. I haven't seen him for a while.
Yeah, he's been missing.
This has gone into hibernation a little bit. But he's looking very good. So I'm sure that the effect of good governance is rubbing off him. And also, of course, good morning to the viewers out there. I mean, I'm struggling to really appreciate the concerns coming from especially the minority. And if it's not just sheer, if you like, intellectual dishonesty, or even hypocrisy, or even double standards, then I won't be able to appreciate where that is coming from. Because there's been a semblance of this joint defense cooperation between ourselves and the U.S. government as far as 1997. And over the period, it has taken different shapes and forms. Even recently in 2015, the then Minister for Foreign Affairs, Hannah Tete, signed a similar agreement with the U.S. government. And that was actually something that did not even go to Parliament. Ghanaians were not fully aware of the details of that particular arrangement. Now, I mean, fast forward 2018, a government comes into power and decides that this time around, what we'll do is that we'll actually follow due process and lay this particular agreement in Parliament so that it's deliberated. And for all intents and purposes, Parliament is meant to be that body that represents the Ghanaian people. And that it's important that these things are actually taken through Parliament, discussed, debate, there's an engagement. And then, of course, it becomes an open and transparent arrangement. So I'm struggling to really understand the minority side of the argument as to...
Do you think this agreement is not new?
No, it's nothing. There's nothing new. I mean, and then that cooperation. I mean, we live in a different world today where, in terms of international diplomacy and all of those things, any government worth its salt will try to form strategic alliances to be able to mitigate the challenges and the dangers of all the things that happens around us. So we cannot even play ostriches or play that sort of ignorance as to we don't know why it's important for us to be able to form some of these strategic alliances.
But Ghana belongs to a non-aligned movement, you know that.
No, but what do you mean by the fact that we belong to a non-aligned movement, so we can't have joint corporations with the U.S. government? In any case, if you go through the plethora of things that the agreement is meant to serve, looking at training military and police personnel, also doing joint training activities with the U.S. Army and all of those things. And then give an opportunity to the U.S. military to also use some of our facilities to be able to facilitate all the things that is going on around the world as we speak today. I don't see anything really wrong with that. And it's open. I mean, and this whole idea that they want to push down the throat of Ghanaians saying that there's some base that is being set up. It's not the case. Of course, once they are present here, they will definitely be using some facilities, and all, of course, they'll have equipment that they'll need a couple of places to store.
We're told that is not in the previous agreement.
That does not mean.
Like the use of,
that does not mean. I mean, the thing is that to be able to appreciate the states and people using all sorts of words in terms of base and facilities and all that. I mean, the point really is that it's purely if you like, mischievous. It's mischief. Now, I mean, I was having a conversation last night. I was like, this is the same party that actually went to sign an agreement to bring in this Getimo 2.
Which you said was wrong.
No, I'm developing a point here. And that it was based on our mutual relationship with the U.S. government, and that is meant to serve a particular good because of our relationship with them. And then a couple of years down the line, especially when this is not new in terms of our relationship and arrangement with them, decide to say that, oh, the mere fact that this agreement is being signed, and then again, actually being sent to Parliament, means that we've actually ceded our sovereignty to the U.S. government. Actually makes no sense to me. So for me, I think that really, sometimes when we get opportunities like that, we can decide to do one or two things. Either it becomes a purely intellectual discourse or something that does the whole democratic thing, whereby we can display divergent opinions, or make it purely cheap politicking. If we want to do that, again, the verdict is out there. The people of this country would appreciate the sort of, if you like, politicians that we are. So, of course, when we get these opportunities, we can say, okay, this is the reason why we think that it's probably a bad idea. But for you to use some of these extremely mischievous arguments, especially when, since 1997, and if you want to do the math, between 1997 and 2018, this same minority, NDC, have been in power longer than anybody else.
And they say this is a new agreement.
But that's what I'm saying, that this new agreement is just meant to
But you claim it as an old one.
Sorry?
You claim it as an old one.
What I'm saying is that there's been different sort of arrangements and agreements with the U.S. government, right, in terms of defense cooperation. And I'm saying to you that as recently as 2015, an agreement was signed. That agreement did not see, right, the light of day. We didn't see it. Nobody knew what was in there when it comes to the general populace. In this particular instance, everybody would have an appreciation to see that sort of arrangement between ourselves and the U.S. government. And I'm saying that it's a departure from the sort of governance that we inherited. So for the same political party or certain elements in that political party to come out and say that now, even though we are taking this to Parliament, there are issues of sovereignty and it was shrouded in secrecy.
No, but how can soldiers who will be here are indemnified per the agreement. They are using our facilities. That is the concern of the, minority.
I am saying to you,
which were not in the previous agreement.
I am saying to you that since 1997, and I'm sure even if you go back, if you can predict 1997, there has always been the presence of U.S. military in this country, either doing one thing or the other. You understand?
Great.
So
they never used our facilities. They were never granted exclusive use of our facilities.
No, but that's what I'm saying.
But this agreement is granting them exclusive use of our facilities.
It is okay to create a certain sense of panic and tension and all of those things. But to what effect? Right? And I'm saying that it's important that we are pragmatic about some of these things. We live in a totally different world today. Right? And when it comes to international diplomacy and all of those things, we have to make a decision to go with what is the trend. And the trend really is that you have to be able to form strategic alliances. You can't just sit there and expect that things would happen. And I'm saying that if there are certain things in there, it's actually gone to Parliament. As it's gone to Parliament, if there are certain aspects of that people are unhappy about, and I'm told that this morning, the select committee responsible for that would be sitting and going through the whole agreement. If there are certain portions of that, I'm sure that this is not like basically set in stone.
Right.
Right? So if those elements can be renegotiated and all of those things, by all means we can do that. We are a democratic country. But the whole argument where people want to probably just make a storm out of nothing, that is where I think that the problem is. But we have to be able to move away from that kind of politicking as far as I'm concerned.
I'm grateful. Honorable Tete Chai, so Eric thinks that this is just a normal day-to-day agreement, and so there's no cause for alarm at all, and that Parliament will deal with it.
Thank you very much. First of all, let me say good morning to your viewers, and to thank them for my absence. Yeah, you need to take a break and then refresh yourself, because as citizens, if I'm to collapse today, I don't think I'll be flown to the UK like the Vice President had. No, it's very important. So there's a need for us to take good care of ourselves.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so sometimes you need to take some time off and then relax and then come back very fresh. So this is for those of you in government.
I must say you're looking good.
Thank you very much.
You exercise?
Yes. And that notwithstanding, I think we are at a state now that people are really disappointed in the way government is handling the country. Not too long ago, when the issue of the Gitmo 2 came to the fore, the same people in government now were not happy with the fact that certain things were not disclosed. Although at that time, because it borders on the sovereignty of this country, the US government found it necessary to touch base with government and then the opposition. You quite remember? Yes. But then, the agreement was not brought to Parliament for ratification. And there were a whole lot of... Hold on. You see, because it touches on the sovereignty of the nation, the people have to be consulted.
Which first. The Supreme Court ruled was wrong not to have sent...
Exactly. And that is exactly what the current government have done. That is why the minority is insisting that it was shrouded in secrecy. Because one, the minority or the opposition, as we talk today, were not consulted on the matter. Now, if you look at the agreement, yes, we've had several cooperation with external bodies, like the UN and other organizations in terms of security. We've had security cooperation with the US. They only come, they train, and then they go away. Okay? Now, if you look at the current agreement, it is not the same as the previous agreement that the MPP is trying to confuse Ghanaians. That, oh, it is the same old agreement that has been extended. It is not true. Because if you look into this agreement, the request that is being made, for me, is outrageous. That as a country, because of what we call no coffee.
That's about $20 million.
Yes, the $20 million.
It's a lot of money.
So we should just give out our birthright for the United States to be controlling everything of ours here? Is that what we want? Because our hands, we are begging for money. So we should swallow virtually everything that they throw to us as a nation. I don't think if there was nothing wrong with this agreement, we will be here discussing that agreement. Because there have been several agreements that we've had with the US. Why were we not discussing those agreements?
Because perhaps you didn't take them to Parliament under the previous...
No, we've had several agreements that have come to Parliament. I've been in Parliament for 8 years. And we've ratified those agreements without any controversy. But why is it that we have controversy on this one? It tells you there are certain clauses that are not acceptable to the good people of this country. Because we don't want our privacy to be just exposed simply because we want $20 million. Why we give, of course, you and I, as citizens, if we want to drive, even if you want to drive today, you have to go to the DVLA and acquire license. Okay? But they are telling us that with what they are coming to do, they shouldn't be allowed to go through those processes. Okay? Look at the huge tax exemptions that we are giving them. It's not even only import, but exports as well. What are they exporting? That is the question we need to ask ourselves. What is the U.S. government exporting from this country that need not to be taxed? Not even imports, that they are bringing in certain equipment, but both imports and exports. Look at our good people at Abosokai. Look at what they are going through in the hands of this government as a result of huge taxes that have been slapped on their activities. And then we give out our sovereignty to the United States, just because of money. You see, and you say we shouldn't talk about it. The good people of this country will talk about it. And you know, Bright, it is not only some of the things that they are demanding from us that the good people of this country are against. But the fact that, you see, when we grant the United States some of these facilities, as a country, we are also exposing ourselves to some of these terrorist activities. Look at countries within the...
I mean, a military coming to train our officers, and that becomes an exposure.
It is not only to train, but they are also going to use this, our country, as a point of deployment. As a point of deployment. So what are we talking about? And they have unfettered access. They can move about, even the areas that they are to move about, we don't even know. The minister is telling us the airport. What about the other areas? What is the meaning of that? What are those areas? The good people of this country wants to know, because this is an agreement. Okay.
Don't you think that Parliament, now that the agreement is before Parliament, that is the point to clean up if there are anything
you see,
to be cleaned?
You see, this is an issue that borders on the sovereignty of the country. Okay, so the proper thing that should have been done was first consulting the various parties, because they represent the people of this country. So the consultation, before even the drafting of the contract, that consultation should have been done. Okay, as we did with the Gitmo 2. Yes, your then flag bearer was consulted on the issue because he represents the opposition. Okay, in this case, nothing of that sort was done. That was why the minority is saying that it was shrouded in secrecy. It only came to them as a surprise. Okay, now, this is ratification. You can use your numbers to ratify. Right, you see the challenge? Where it has gotten to now. You only need, we just need a ratification. And if the majority are whipped to fall in line, they'll just ratify this agreement. Because for them, all what they need is the money. They don't care about the impact this agreement is going to have on the citizens of this country.
Let me go to Eric. Eric, the benefit of this agreement, is this something Ghana should grab?
No, but then, I mean, I just want to react to a couple of these things. To be honest with you, my good friend here has exposed his hypocrisy. And it's essentially the plethora of things that he actually listed out that he believes should have happened. Didn't happen when the Honorable Hannah Tete...
You said the opposition should have been told about it.
Let me finish.
Okay.
When the Honorable Hannah Tete signed the agreement, that agreement in 2015, as I speak to you, I'm not sure that anybody knows
which agreement is that?
The content of that agreement. Again, Gitmo 2, he is saying that this actually exposes Ghanaians to terrorist attacks. You agreed surreptitiously to actually bring in 2 individuals who have been accused of being engaged in terrorist activities and were actually in Guantanamo Bay base, right?
And we're cleared of any wrongdoing.
Well, but that is the hypocrisy there. And I'm saying that this particular arrangement has gone through the Attorney General's office, has had input from the Ministry of Interior. I've had input from the Army itself. I've had input from the Ministry of Defense and all of those things, and has gone to Parliament. Now, if you're talking about consultation,
his problem is with consulting the opposition, because he said that when during the Gitmo 2, the then opposition leader was consulted.
By who?
Well, the U.S. Embassy came out to say that.
No, but that is why
you
see, it's important that when you have these conversations, and I'm saying to you that you can pretend that we don't live in a different world as we speak today. The security implications and all the things that are going on in terms of terrorist activities and all of those things, plus the fact that the global landscape itself has changed. It is important that as a country, you form these strategic alliances. You understand what I'm saying? And it's also important that it is open and transparent so that the good people of this country will have an appreciation of what is happening. And as far as I'm concerned, that has been done.
Okay.
Parliament is a representative of what? Representation of the people of this country. Is that not the case?
Exactly.
Right. So for me, this whole argument and then trying to just make mere politics out of it, it's neither here nor there. The most important thing is that there are benefits, clear benefits that would accrue to the people of this country.
Is it beneficial? Is it beneficial? 20 million?
We sit on this platform every day to say that our police personnel, our military personnel need training, modern training and all of those things. Apart from that, this whole idea of exports, I mean, it's also extremely, if you like, mischievous.
It's in the agreement.
You haven't seen it. You haven't seen it in the agreement?
It's in the agreement.
The agreement says that if they bring in equipment and materials and all of those things to do the activities, they are allowed to remove it as and when they want, isn't it?
Right.
Right. So what is exports? What is exporting? Is it that they are coming to Ghana to manufacture something or produce something and export? You see, sometimes when you do some of these things, listen, you see, it's there, black and white. So if they can take the equipment
if they bring in the equipment and they are taking them out, can we describe them as exports?
Yes.
Oh, really?
You can.
Okay.
Right. But that's a clear definition of the.
Okay.
So we are bringing. You see, when you go through
in the agreement, that's the definition of export.
You see, when you go through a process, right, of bringing in goods into this country, it passes through our ports. It can be either sea or airports. Okay. You understand? And then if you're taking it out as well, it takes the same form.
They become exports.
Yes, it goes through a process. Even where I sit as Ghana Export Promotion Authority, unfortunately, if somebody comes into this country and dies, right, and they are meant to even transport the remains back to their country, a letter is sent to us through Ministry of Trade to say that this body is being exported back to a country of origin.
Okay, so for you, that is the meaning
yes,
of what is in the agreement.
They are not coming to sit here and
I'll come to you. I'll come to you very soon.
Something and export to their country. But in any case, these discussions are important. I'm not really one of those people who would say, oh, it's not important for us to have discussions of this nature. We understand? Because that's how you build a nation. And it's key that as we do this, we even develop learning. And it's probably something that's going to shape, right, our democratic dispensation. There's absolutely nothing wrong.
He also says that
but my point is that
the $20 million
when you look,
is not something
but you see, when he says these things, that is where I would have to now come and counter.
Okay.
When these two gentlemen from the Gitmo 2 came in, the NDC government flatly denied that there was some kind of monetary compensation coming in.
You were asking them to.
We even asked them. They said there was nothing like that, sir. It happened that there was actually some monetary consideration.
There were?
There was.
Oh, okay.
Later, they lied about it.
No.
There was a blatant lie.
Okay.
But you see, in this particular,
you said there was some
I want anybody sitting at home today to judge. In this particular instance, right, the terms of this particular agreement has been laid out. It's actually also being discussed as we speak. That is some of the things that happens in a democratic dispensation. And then it's gone to Parliament. And like I mentioned, Ministry of Interior, Ministry of Defense, the Attorney General's Department, and other agencies were consulted in the drafting of this agreement. Right? How open is that?
Okay.
Juxtapose that against the one that they brought in terms of the Gitmo 2, in terms of what the Anatete signed in 2015, and even the Supreme Court's judgment based on this Gitmo 2, and make it your own judgment.
Right.
All right. I'm grateful. I want to try. So,
right.
He's raising quite a
in the first place, the issue of Gitmo 2. Let's set the records straight.
You are now going to, after leaving government, you're now going to
government never benefited a penny. The resources that were allocated was for their up.
Yeah, but even this 20 million.
Even
this 20 million. It says that it's going to. It's not going to be 20 million that is going to be paid to government. It's in the form of training.
We need to be factual.
Grants and all sort of things. Military training.
Eric, you allow him.
We have to be factual.
Eric,
we have to be factual.
Okay, please go on.
People are also learning. The resources that was realized out of that project was for their upkeep. Government wasn't giving money for keeping the Gitmo 2, as you are doing in this case.
How?
You are
government is going to collect
$20 million.
No,
of course.
But have you read the argument?
But right.
Hold on. Hold on. Training, support,
please,
and equipment and materials for the army and police.
$20 million. Right.
We have taken $20 million cash.
What even makes this thing worse is the fact that we've also surrendered the laws of our country, Ghana, to the US. It is there. What we are saying as a people is that our laws don't matter. If anything is to happen, it is the US laws that will be applied. You see how our leaders lead us as a country. So we are allowing them to come, have unfettered access. They do whatever they want to do. And at the end of the day, when they create problems for us, it is their law in America that will be applied and not the Ghanaian law. And our leaders are ready to ratify this as a country. And you tell the citizens not to complain because you are collecting $20 million.
Nobody is collecting $20 million.
That is what you are collecting.
No, it's not.
It's there. $20 million.
$20 million.
So we should surrender our sovereignty.
Listen.
As a nation.
It's in the form of training and equipment.
And that amounts to what? And that amounts to what?
And grants.
And that amounts to
what? Is that money that is coming to government coffers?
It is going to fund those things. The benefits that's the benefits that you are going to get.
Even this argument that.
So we surrendered our laws.
Listen.
We surrendered our country.
Listen. Even this
for the
argument,
US
right, in international diplomacy.
And this is what our leaders have
gone to
sign.
I know about international relations.
Let's wrap up on this one.
Every embassy, every embassy.
Right.
Listen.
Right.
Let me finish.
If our parliament is to ratify this agreement, I don't think the good people of this country will be happy with them.
Eric,
go to social media. See what is happening there.
Can we do without this agreement?
They should look at the agreement.
I mean, as we are speaking on this platform now, he made some points, and I want to clarify that. Every single embassy in this country or anywhere in the world, if you are in that catchment area, you are inside the premises of the embassy.
Right.
You're protected. Exactly. It is the laws of. It's just an extension. You see?
No, it's not.
It's a convention.
It's a convention. Right, and that when you, for instance, if you are a diplomat or you're a government official that you find yourself somewhere, or somebody who has a special dispensation, you're protected by certain things. You see.
These are not diplomats.
But the point is that an agreement has been signed. I'm just using it as an example.
Yes.
The point is that these arrangements, are they necessary or not? Do we need
it?
Do we need cooperation between ourselves and the American or the US government?
We do.
In terms of
training
and all of those
independence.
things. We do.
Yes.
Do we need to train our military and some police personnel. We do. Is there a need to form strategic alliances in today's global landscape? We do.
Yes.
Right? Have we had long-standing relations with the U.S. government? We do.
The question is the contract that you are signing.
But you haven't been able to convince me.
Really?
The elements within this arrangement.
Really?
That you, the NDC, as a minority, and even when you were in government, right, didn't do. And in this particular instance, I am saying to you that this government, and I will commend the Minister of Defense for showing some resolve and tenacity. And again, making sure that due process is followed. And this government, this President Akufo-Addo's government, has also shown you the way in terms of clear following of the rule of law and procedures by taking it to Parliament, which you did not do.
No.
Okay.
All what we are saying is
wrap up for me.
The contract is a bad one. We need to review that contract. That is all the good people of this country are saying.
Is he okay? Anyway, let me just reserve my comments on this.
Surrender our sovereignty.
All right.
Because of money. No.
I'm grateful. Now let's touch on let me get the politicians to touch on the Bank of Ghana thing. Later on, we'll have the professionals in here to also take a look at the Bank of Ghana appointing a new administrator for Unibank. And the Daily Graphic put it, Unibank insolvent, KPMG takes over. The story is well known. Unibank is no longer being run by its management. A new management headed by KPMG is in charge. For the next 6 months, we're told by the Bank of Ghana that it will try and clean up the mess, and then the bank will be handed over back to a private investor. Honorable, let's start from you. Would you say that the banking sector is in crisis? Is that what we see?
Right. We've been told for some time now that several banks within the country are challenged. But the more worrying situation is the fact that our local banks, the banks that belongs to the indigenes, are the ones being targeted for, in quotes, liquidation or whatever. It is a very sad case. Good practices, governance issues, needs to be adhered to. And especially when our own institutions or banks are in that distressed situation, we need to do all what we can as a country to ensure that they survive. Okay? Per what is happening, especially with Unibank, a lot of people within the financial sector have raised worrying issues, especially with the way Unibank is being handled. Some believe that there is some political infusion into what is happening at Unibank. Simply because just a few weeks ago, we all know the tussle between Bank of Ghana, Unibank, over some shares to be taken up by Unibank from ADB. And just after 2 weeks, this punishment was handed over to Unibank. We need to protect our own. We need to develop Ghanaian indigenous businesses. That does not mean that we should run down our institutions and expect that government will come in. But then we need to do it in such a way that it will not send a wrong signal about the Ghanaian investor investing in his own country, the way he's treated. What some of us want to know is that, are they the only banks that are challenged? If other banks are also challenged per the report that came out, why is it that they are being targeted in that manner? We want to know. We want to know. People are bringing so many theories into what is happening. We all know the background of the finance minister. We know his background.
Background as in what?
As a
finance person.
Okay, yes, they own a bank.
Okay.
Exactly. So people are reading several meanings into what is happening. Now look, is it an attempt to collapse other indigenous banks to allow others to thrive within the economy of this country? We want to know. So we want the Bank of Ghana to come clear that look, there are 9 banks that are in this situation. We are taking over those banks. Okay? But it shouldn't look as if it is some banks that are being targeted. If it happens that way, then we are not being fair to our own people.
But if a bank's capital adequacy ratio is negative 24%, perhaps the Bank of Ghana's duty is to save it from collapse.
Yeah, definitely nobody is against that. Okay? But you see, there are issues. There are issues that have been reported. The bank is also challenging the assertions of Bank of Ghana. Bank of Ghana is also saying that they were not giving affected access into their operations.
Their figures.
Exactly. So they are also taking those measures. The question is, on what basis are they taking those measures if you were not given the access? Okay? On what basis are you taking those actions? For me, I would say that, look, if really you were not given access to information, then yes, like the way KPMG is acting, they can be allowed to go in and then do the assessment and then report back. Then based on their assessment, we all know that, oh, this is the true situation of the bank. Okay? But per what is happening now, the bank is also telling us, that's Bank of Ghana, is also telling us that they were not given access. So upon what information are you saying that they've gone down negative 24%? Well, they are also saying that they are within the 10% capitalization ratio. You see, so those of us who are not even into finance, the whole thing is becoming murkier. And even those who are within that sector, lecturers, people who are well versed in that field, are also complaining that per what is happening, they think there's some form of political connotation within the whole setup. So Bank of Ghana has to come clean and let the good people of this country know actually the situation.
I'm grateful. Eric, so the Bank of Ghana outlined some measures that it says it will take to bring back the bank on board. The question, or can we ask the question that how can the Bank of Ghana stop these banks from going this way even before they get to where they are, since they are the supervisors of these institutions?
Well, I think that nobody would be happy in a sense when our indigenous banks would be collapsing, and that would sort of get anything out of it. There's absolutely no benefits to accrue if that happens. Now, it's also extremely dangerous, and it's something that we need to abhor as a people, where my good friends here now develop conspiracy theories as to why
it will come in.
Conspiracy theories as to why a bank that has been clearly been almost kept afloat by the Bank of Ghana to the tune of 2.6 billion Ghana cedis. Actually, the Bank of Ghana, 2 billion. And the governor made that statement yesterday that is actually exposed to Unibank to that level. For you to now come and make such an irresponsible, if you like, allusion to some conspiracy theory. For me, when you do that, it takes away from the conversation, right? And I think that for a platform like that, we should be saying that.
Right.
I
take exception.
But you see,
please hold on. You should be a gentleman.
But that's irresponsible. Irresponsible is
I can go on that
tangent. You talk it. Tone down your
use appropriate words. People are listening.
He has a right to have an opinion.
Exactly.
Yes. All right.
I will not use those.
But I will insist that it's conspiracy theory.
Right.
And again, it's classic.
Exactly.
Classic NDC. I can withdraw the irresponsible if you feel offended. But the point really is simple, that every institution in this country is meant to be governed by some regulation, right? And a bank, especially by dint of the fact that you're actually keeping people's money in trust and use it in a manner that anytime they want to have access to it, they can have access to. Right. Now, are we saying that the BOG should be so irresponsible to the point where we have a DKM and God is love situation and then blame government or use taxpayers' money, right, to pay depositors just because the regulators did not do their job? Is that what we are saying? And this arrangement clearly indicates that the Bank of Ghana believes that bringing in a third party to manage the affairs of Unibank, probably in the next 6 months or so, will be able to revamp, restore some semblance of good corporate governance and following the processes and all of those things, especially when there's been allegations that in terms of even the reporting of figures and all of those things, there were certain discrepancies in there, or even some of these things were willfully not exposed to the Bank of Ghana. Right? You can't, have your cake. Eat your cake and have it. It is not possible. So I think that in terms of even capitalization and all of these things, it's also not a very good thing to say that, oh, because the Unibank recently had issues with trying to take over ADB or they had an arrangement with Belstar and all of this is the reason why this thing is happening. And for you to also impugn the integrity of the finance minister, to even say that because he's a player in the financial sector or he has interest in the financial sector, he is sitting down and trying to collapse indigenous banks.
Please,
right? No, but he said,
you were not listening. You were not listening.
Eric,
you were not listening.
He didn't say that. Let me finish. He didn't say that.
You see, it's important. It's important that we become open and transparent in some of these discussions. It's an open secret that 9 banks, or some, probably even more, have been exposed to either bad practices or sort of their capital adequacy ratios are low. And even when it comes to this Unibank conversation, it happens that Unibank actually promised the Bank of Ghana that it had put measures in place, right, to be able to meet that capital adequacy ratio. And that hasn't happened. And that necessitated the Bank of Ghana to come in to sanitize the organization, to make sure that depositors, who are the most important in this aspect, not necessarily somebody who has set up a bank, but people who either through their hard work, savings, and all of those things, have been able to make enough money and deposited that in a bank to be protected.
Okay.
Now, so for me, it's not an issue of somebody deliberately trying to, what would you gain out of that? I have always maintained that this whole culture of going it alone, and even in the banking sector, for instance, where you have all these small banks, right, and there's a reluctance to come together and merge and create bigger banks, it's a challenge. Anybody out there involved in business who wants to engage a Ghanaian bank today to even invest in big ticket items, right, will struggle. And for that in itself, right, doesn't augur well for an economy like ours.
Okay.
So even if
Eric, pause here.
Even if we want to
let me
just
wrap up.
If we want to delve into the sort of things that banks, for instance, invest in, the kind of things that they learn, you realize that it goes into certain high-risk areas, right? And it's
Their
important.
investments.
Yes, it's important that a bigger bank will be able to what?
Okay.
Weather the shocks when it comes to some of these things. So we can have a more like expansive conversation
on this.
around that.
I'm grateful. Johnny, let's check some comments.
Yes,
now.
sir. And Alasan Wawana says Ghana can work again in this current administration if only corrupt officials have been arrested, investigated, and prosecuted. When these people are severely punished and their properties are seized, it will be a deterrent to other officials. If it's done, Ghana can be beyond aid. Good morning, TV3. I like your tough and factual speeches, or if you will, opinions on pertinent issues. It makes me always watch TV3 in the morning. Johnny, you always speak factually and passionately about issues concerning Ghana's development. Keep it up. I would like to link up with you, okay? But he says the Bank of Ghana is incompetent in its supervisory, advisory and monitoring role. We jumped that one. Okay, let's find Walanyo and Akwetia. Good morning, Johnny and TV3 guys. Sometimes I may not be an economist, but I comment on banking sector brouhaha. If economists and PhD are aligning politics to such a sensitive financial issue, what does government stand to gain apart from trying to streamline the banking sector for the benefit of our economy? Too much politics is wreaking havoc to our nation. Any serious guru in economics, especially in the banking and finance, will tell you this action by the mother bank is laudable, prudent and spot on. You don't expect such a bank to collapse and later blame government or victims of such circumstances to demonstrate against government for their monies to be refunded to them, like what happened at DKM. The government is being proactive, not reactive. We should be objective, put down our political lenses and stop being partisan. When we do this, we become political ordinary. Thank you very much, Kate Jemfua. Good morning, TV3. The issue concerning the U.S. establishing a military base in Ghana needs not politicians as panelists, but defense and international relations experts. Please learn from what Pastor Altabel said. Abubakar, Pastor Altabel will be watching Animals by now. From Musa at BA, good morning. Right. We're disappointed in this current government for selling our sovereignty to dishonest U.S. military might. Either our president and his cabinet were surely, well, that's unpalatable. When, I don't get it. There's too much insult in that. Good morning, TV3. NDC and their propaganda, when it's Capital Bank, it was bad management of Pastor Otabil. Today, because it's Unibank and belongs to their financiers, it is politically motivated. NDC give us a break. Ebenezer from Asafura and Umabu. Good morning, Bright. If Ghanaians allow this U.S. military agreement to pass, then it means we don't have leaders in this country. You give them everything, including the power to build every facility they like. Do you know that the gadgets and, well, equipment that will allow them to listen to the information of our government? Please, where are the leaders of this country? This agreement is not about primary schools politics, but as our country hood. Our leaders should think a little bit. Why do you always sell your entire country out to another country? Weak thinkers will bring this country down. Felix in Kumasi, TV3 NewDay. Good morning. With the greatest of respect, okay, this is to Honorable Dominic Tituwo. I don't know where it's coming from. And so, Nongo Yusuf from Y in the Upper West region says, TV3, you're the best. I've never seen you every time you're on point. Thank you very much. Good morning, TV3. I don't know what is happening in this country. Politicians who we voted for take decisions without thinking about who puts them there. They only think about themselves and their political party. I hope Parliament will kick against this, because so far we are the only West African country without any terrorist attack, and they want to do everything to destroy us. God help Mother Ghana. Keep TV3, keep up the good work. I'll go back to this. Well, it says, with the greatest of respect, Honorable Dominic Tituwo, you and who need partners. Wherever U.S. established a military base, no peace came there. Check the records and you will realize that Akufo-Addo wants to destroy this poor nation. After realizing that Delta, invisible forces, want to go international, the same people criticized Gitmo 2 deal severely and made political gains out of it. Now they got power and they want to do worse for their nation. Hey, Ghana beyond 8 Panye. Osman Burke sounding Tamale. And maybe we'll check out one more before we wrap up. Alasan Wawana says, good morning to you and your viewers. It will be very, very dangerous in keeping U.S. military base in Ghana. U.S. may have a hidden agenda from coming to work here. Part of the agreement is that if any of U.S. soldiers commits an offense, he or she cannot be tried by the laws of this country. Tell the MPP man to stop misleading Ghanaians. The Nokofio should not be the basis to sell out our sovereignty. John in Kumasi. And I guess I'll leave it here, Bright. I thank you very much for your time.
All right. The Nokofio.
Okay.
No coffee. That is not true. The no coffee.
Okay, all right.
You are selling.
Unfortunately, we'll have to wrap up the conversation. Gentlemen, I'm grateful. Honorable Chief Lotso is a member of parliament, a former member of parliament for the Ablekuma Central constituency, a member of the NDC. Eric Chumbe is a deputy chief executive of the Ghana Export Promotion Authority, a member of the NPP. Gentlemen, grateful for your Wednesday morning with us. Stay with us. If you send your comment, we'll read the rest. And sports is up next.
Welcome back. So yesterday, of course, there was a press release to the statement that Bank of Ghana has appointed KPMG as the official administrators of Unibank. But note, Unibank was adjudged the 6th best performing company in Ghana at the Club 100 Awards in just 2017. So we're going to find out exactly what happened to get them to this level. I'll be speaking to Dr. Lord Mensah. He's a senior lecturer at the Department of Finance at University of Ghana Business School. And of course, Dr. Kobe Mensah, he's also a lecturer at the Department of Marketing and Entrepreneurship at University of Ghana Business School. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
So let's delve straight into this issue because it's baffling. We woke up, I mean, last week, Unibank was on the news because they thought, or people thought they were going to acquire some shares, that's ADB shares, and then reign in the banking industry. But it seems they're toppling down. What exactly accounts for this?
Well, if you ask me, I would say it has to do with maybe you're looking at somebody who is going to die, right, and then in the end trying to survive. You know, putting out there of acquiring ADB could be also one of the mechanisms, right, you know, to ensure that they get liquidated. Because once they acquire those shares, more or less a way of, you know, bringing some cash to maintain their liquidity needs. But then you also have to look at this from the regulator's perspective. You're looking at a regulator that has been given liquidity support over the years. Now, acquiring shares might not necessarily be the solution. Okay, so in the end, let's think about your cash needs. I mean, as and when depositors walk to the bank, how sustainable can you provide, you know, their cash to them? And I think for a bank to be on liquidity support for 2 good years, I mean, since 2015, I mean, it's quite questionable. And you ask yourself, at what threshold, in terms of time limit, would, you know, the regulator come in and say, hey, enough is enough? At the end of the day, this is not a time to keep you going anymore. I mean, this is the time. No. But then the regulator also has, you know, something that we need to understand them in a way, because it won't be good to wake up in the morning, go into the banking hall, and then you don't get your cash. So the regulator needs to ensure that that panic, you know, is not created, because it might be Unibank, but then depositors or potential investors might be thinking, oh, it could be the banking system, so let's keep our money. So regulator being, you know, keeping the financial system in check will ensure that they provide that support. But then let me also take you back in the years. You see, when we talk about financial crisis, normally, or economic crisis, normally start from the banking sector, which dominates our environment of, you know, the financial system. Now, if you take our economy, 2015, we all saw the problems we had. We were more or less in crisis. Everything was on its knees, including this doomsday. Did we see any bank, you know, reacting to it? No. We didn't. That means that there are several banks that has been receiving that support as a result of this, their relationship with the central bank. And remember, most of these banks have their links in the central bank, apart from, you know, that kind of regulatory link. They have that informal link, let me put it that way, because we have governors who have their banks, we have MDs who have their banks, we have so all these things are likely to, you know, influence, you know, the way and manner things will be run from the regulator level to the banking level. So we didn't get any bank reacting, you know, for those economic mess that we found ourselves in. So, but then you can't play with economics. If it doesn't happen today, trust me, you get a reaction in future. So we know that definitely there's going to be a reaction in the financial space, coupled with the regulators' changes in mind that we need to restructure the banks. So in the end, we're going to increase the capital requirement. Obviously, If you are a bank and you are not well capitalized, you find yourself wanting. So you'll be knocked off the space. Right. So like I said, we're going to have series of mergers, series of takeovers, and series of acquisitions within the next 8 months that, you know, the capital requirement will be, you know, active.
Right. You know, let me come to you, Dr. Mensah, with a different question, because I still don't understand what is happening in our banking system. See, the data we have shows that Unibank in 2016 had a capital adequacy ratio of 4.75. Then they planned to recapitalize to about 7.7% by August 2017, and they submitted these documents to Bank of Ghana. At that point, when you realized in 2017 that they haven't been able to do this, why would you consistently support them? And even while supporting them, they go into a negative CAR of 12.5 and then subsequently 24%. And so at that point, was Bank of Ghana just being extremely lenient or not really doing its supervisory role well?
No, I think that I would take the latter part, the supervisory role. And as Lord alluded to, you have so many informal relationships, you know, going on. Right. So people are actually, you know, considering their relationship as opposed to the interest of the average Ghanaian, as opposed to the interest of the consumer. Now, I asked the same question. Now, we know that the banks were under stress test, etc. And I was asking Lord, where did we see those stress tests being published, the results of the stress test, so that consumers would have informed decisions to know where to take your money and where not to take your money? Then, and I think that there's also another point that has to be made, again, with regards to regulations, as we're talking about. Now, if the regulator is being careless, now, what other levels of regulation or supervisory, you know, role do we have? We don't have consumer protection agencies, activists, who would actually look into the financial space and say, look, based on this information, we think, you know, consumers must be protected. We think the banks are not in the right shape. So that even if you have such irresponsible behavior, and I think the central bank actually, the regulator is actually being very reactionary. And you know, if the central bank is not really taking care of, you know, people, they're not looking at the consumer's interest because of the informal relationship they have with the financial space, who then will do that checks for us and to be able to, you know, tell the consumer that now there is risk here, there is risk there. Remember, the information asymmetry within the financial space is very, very huge because a lot of people don't even understand bank statement. A lot of us don't even understand, you know, the terminologies, receivership, you know, administration, mergers and acquisitions. We don't get that, all right? So we must, as a matter of agency, start developing another layer in terms of activism, in terms of, you know, independent supervision, so that we can, you know, better inform, you know, the consumers, better inform, better put the regulators on their toes to do the right thing. I'm telling you, like you're saying, I mean, how could an institution saying that they are actually regulating and be allowing these things to go on for 2 years? And look at what there are a lot of flaws that they were talking about. You know, they loaning to their own, you know, other companies, they outsourcing from their own companies. I'm telling you, there are a lot of institutions here, financial institutions, who own consumer, you know, consumables, fast-moving consumer companies, who own media houses, who own so many other sectors in the economy. Now, you ask yourself, when they take the money, the deposits and things, where do they push the money to? And what's the risk level? We know institutions who own almost about 15 companies in diversities. Who is monitoring antitrust competition issues? You know, who is monitoring all that? Nobody cares.
I think to add up to that, you see, you mentioned the assets that they own. You see, conversion of assets from liquid to the illiquid, you know, the tangibles, sometimes we think it's profitability. If you look at banking in this country, we think visibility is the main bane of banking. But let me tell you that branching, you know, does not necessarily build up into profitability. Does not necessarily build up. You have to think about your client outreach. So we see more, the banks being on the high street, we see banks being at the corner. Now, we are in a technological level where banking can be sophisticated, even banking can be on one desk, for which you can manage across board. So for me, one of the problems, because I heard the governor saying that, you know, they were committing more into capital investment. A bank that is struggling in terms of meeting your day-to-day, cash needs. And then you turn up to him investing in capital, intensive project. Then it means possibly they were thinking about only tangibles, visibility. Right. But then banking is beyond that. Trust me, if you don't manage your day-to-day runnings very well, you can't meet the long-term needs of the bank.
But guys, let me ask you, what exactly is happening to our local banks? Because we had the UT saga, we had the Capital Bank issue, and now we have Unibank joining. What exactly is it when it comes to the banking atmosphere? Is it that we don't understand how to run it? Is it that the regulator is not performing well? What are the, effects of all this?
Right. I mentioned about familiarity.
Right.
In terms of relationships here and there. In terms of, these are all corporate governance issues. Now, as a local bank, you have that influence with the regulator. Okay. You have that link with the regulator, for which if parameters are put down, I believe that the foreign banks, having been financially muscled, and then in the end also making sure that we are foreigners, we are in a different environment, and then also we have a parent company, that there are some standards that is required. The environment that you operate in, make sure that you meet the basic, requirement.
Right.
However, with our local banks, trust me, we can overlook so many things. In terms of board formation, in terms of who is supposed to be a director, in terms of who manages what, it can be a problem with our local banks. So if you look at the problems that we're having, it has to do with, governance issues from the regulator level all the way down to the main banking stream.
And also I think that we're not being innovative and creative enough. I mean, our banks are not marketing. Now, we don't have solid research, backbone to understand the market very well. If you look at our banking product, now the strategies are the same, the products are the same. They just
we call heading.
Exactly.
But
nobody is
the
doing,
risk is very high.
Nobody is doing
one,
nobody is doing something different. Right. Nobody is actually disrupting the market to get the foothold in it. If you look at the majority of our banks actually sit in Accra. I mean, I went to Volta region just last weekend, and you can't see the presence of our banks there. Now, what's the economy of Accra? All right, and yesterday we were discussing this. Accra is about what 40%.
Our GDP.
So the rest of the country, all right. What are our banks doing in terms of targeting, in terms of making sure that you can actually have a very niche, kind of approach to the market of other areas, not only Accra. If you go to Takrady, what must you do differently? If you go to Kumasi, what must you do differently? If you go to Volta region, what must you do differently? We are not actually thinking that. We are not actually being creative, innovative enough to take advantage of the available spaces other than Accra. So they're doing the same thing, and therefore they're struggling. And I'm sure the foreign banks are much more, because they have the know-how. They have, because most of them are coming from very competitive environments. South Africa, Nigeria, very competitive. So therefore they may have some kind of a different approach. But our local banks are not learning, and they are not actually being innovative and creative.
Okay. So finally, KPMG is going to be the official administrator. What does that mean? Supposing 6 months later, Unibank doesn't rise to the standard requirement, what happens?
Yeah, for that one, I had issues with that because, well, we understand our market is not that dynamic for us to have a takeover from another bank or another entity. Because the bank that is struggling with its liquidity needs, that is the upper part of your balance sheet. Now, you can get another bank or another entity to inject capital and then more or less to meet those liquidity needs. You weigh in terms of equity. So once that equity holdings changes, it has something. It would trigger change in management. And so that's why I said that they should have allowed the market forces to determine that change of what? Management. Rather than, going through KPMG, which will come at a cost to the nation. Because as we speak now, who is going to pay KPMG? So we have a country where, the regulator also said that they were going to raise money to I don't know whether it's a bailout or whatever it is, to bail out Capital Bank and UT Bank. We already had a takeover of some assets within this banks. And so why should we struggle to raise money to go and bail out some of these bad debts? So for me, I think the regulator needs to be a bit prudent. You know, sometimes you need to allow the market to operate.
Dictate.
You know, to determine who owns what.
Right.
And that's how the market is supposed to be. Without, you know, any time we just have to intervene. We intervene
and I think that
and the moment, 1 minute, sir. The moment you are allowing that intervention, then you take us to the other side of what the flip coin, where we start thinking, what are you up to? Are you thinking about knocking off some, you know, banks intentionally?
Right.
We don't want to question that. But so we should allow the market to operate.
And I think that the regulator hadn't been, you know, very strategic enough. I mean, you send text messages around and tell people that, or you organize a press and you tell people that your monies are safe. It's not enough.
Right.
I mean, there is no contact where people can call to have a follow-up and to ask questions and to ask, what is the net for us, or what is the implications? You know, you just don't come and say your money is safe, and then people actually believe. I'm doing research at the moment in terms of mergers and acquisitions that's happening. You know, the consumers' responses, and people are so confused.
They are,
and I'm telling you, there's oscillation in the market. There's
They
oscillation in the market. People actually pulling their monies and saving it at home. Do you know the risk implications for that? So I think that we must be serious. You know, we must be serious.
But the way manner the regulator is going about it is in itself uncertain. For which, you know, funds doesn't survive in those environments. Right. You know, because if you take what is happening, for me, I think it's about time they come out. How many banks are in the line to go? Exactly. I mean, this is how we're going about it. We want, you know, KPMG or whoever to take over that. We want, you know, we're going to inject capital into this bank so that we, you know, we do it once and for all, and then we place that certainty in the environment. But as you release it bit by bit, as we trust me, my mind is, you know, not stable as we speak.
And don't forget, you have the microfinance issues. About 30 of them placed. So many other uncertainties.
And there are too many uncertainties in our banking industry.
You know,
but guys, thank you so much for joining us. We couldn't delve too much into it because of time, but we promised to bring you more on this KPMG taking over Unibank issue. But I have been speaking to Dr. Lord Mensah. He's a senior lecturer at the Department of Finance at University of Ghana Business School, and also Dr. Kobe Mensah. He's a lecturer at the Department of Marketing and Entrepreneurship at University of Ghana Business School. We'll take a break. We'll be back with more here on New Day. Stay with us.
Welcome back. The Afro Barometer by the CDD has released this latest report. We want to focus on one of the key components of that report. We want to talk about the rule of law and how Ghanaians responded to that. I've been joined by its Executive Director of the CDD, Professor Henry Kwesi Prempeh. Chief, good morning. Good morning. Happy New Year, belated. But it's good to see you. It's been a long time.
It's been a while.
The Afro Barometer, each time it's released, you know, sends shivers down some spines and people start asking a lot of questions. What has been the reaction generally so far with this one?
Well, we just did the release just a couple of days ago. And this time, this is round 7 of Afro Barometer. We conducted interviews sometime in September last year, during the 2-week window between September 9th and the 25th. And the findings on the rule of law side are generally good. You know, law is the primary instrument by which government governs. And so it's important every now and then to measure the health of a democracy by looking at the extent to which we are law compliant. We are a law compliant society, not just the citizenry, but also the public officials. To what extent are we a law-abiding society? And so we did that to gauge the health of rule of law in Ghana. And the findings are not necessarily bad at all. I think so. At one level, we wanted to know citizens' expectations of government when it comes to law, because
we'll come into the nitty-gritties, Prof.
Right.
Is it a true reflection of us on the ground, given the fact that we've grown to some 29.6 million now? You did a little over 2,000 respondents. Would you say that's the true reflection on the ground?
Well, I mean, statistics and statistical models and how you go from a small sample to extrapolate to the national population is a very technical, very complex, statistical kind of work. So I am not even competent to actually do it, but we are very competent statisticians. Right. When we do these things, it's led by a team of qualified statisticians and social scientists who are trained in this area, and the methodology, they use a sample size that, in their view, achieves a high degree of confidence. I think in this case, it was a sample size of 2,400 with about a confidence level of somewhere in the vicinity of 90–95%. Right. So the professionals in this area understand and know that you can take a small sample size or a seemingly small sample size, 2,400, and still be able to get from that group an opinion that is representative of the national. So I would not query that. It's a very technical area that you would probably at some point, if you have reason to doubt, invite a group of statisticians to actually explain to you.
75% of the respondents you spoke to said that Parliament should insist that the President explains government spending. That's correct. Is that already not happening?
Well, we asked that question to gauge the expectations. What do citizens think are the appropriate roles of certain government agencies and authorities? So with that question, we were trying to gauge the extent to which citizens believe that it's an appropriate role for Parliament to check the President, even in the area of spending. Right. Because spending comes in the form of an Appropriations Act. That's what gives the government the power to spend. So it's law. So one of the ways we're trying to measure the law abidingness in this country is, do you believe that Parliament has the right to ask the President, even the President, to justify or explain his spending? And 75% of Ghanaians believe that. That is an appropriate role for Parliament.
The 25% who didn't believe that, what were some of the reasons? I'm curious.
Well,
what did they assign to it?
So there were some who said, look, the President is elected to lead. Just let him go about, doing the business of leading instead of explaining things to you, right? So there we still have gaps in the sense that there's still a small, albeit a small, percentage of the population that doesn't quite think that it is the business of Parliament to ask the President to account for how monies that are appropriated to the President are being spent. Right, so it's still a small gap we have to work on. It means that there is still a challenge of civic education so that everybody is on board, that in fact, when we choose Parliament and we elect a President, they have their own separate roles. And one of Parliament's appropriate roles is indeed to ask the executive to account
to the extent that we run a hybrid system where 50% of the ministers of the government must come from Parliament. Does it really entrench this position of having the gatekeeping and, if you like, the checks and balance system properly, done and dusted?
I mean, at some level, it shouldn't really matter, right? Because sure, you have, on the one hand, you have the American presidential system where the Congress and the President do not mix. I mean, you don't have a congressperson serving in the President's cabinet, but you also have the Westminster where the entire executive is drawn from within Parliament. And even there, you still have Parliament playing this role. So it is possible. I have heard the excuse sometimes that because the President must draw a certain number, in fact, a majority of his ministers from Parliament, that disables Parliament from performing this role, but it shouldn't.
Is that not true? Is that not what is on the ground?
I have no doubt that in our system, it does have a big effect. But there are many other reasons why. I mean,
is the effect negative or positive?
In my view, it is so far negative, at least from the experience that we've had so far. I doubt that there is anyone there who believes that drawing a majority of ministers from within Parliament has inured to the benefit of good governance in the sense of enabling Parliament to perform its oversight role. Nobody doubts that it has been negative. I think so far the evidence shows that it has not really allowed Parliament space.
Let's go to the court, Prof. And 75% again of the respondents say the President must abide by the dictates of the courts and the law, even if it thinks it is wrong. The recent reference that we would have will be the Muntie 3 ruling. And I know that Nana Santibedieto and 2 others are in court trying to get the Supreme Court to rule on it. Where does this fall in it? What question specifically did you pose to them? And tell me the responses that
I wouldn't be able to get the exact because I don't have the questionnaire before me. But even that, I don't know that you could use the. Again, I think this is a good measure of the sense of the population in terms of their expectation about different roles. They know that you are president, fine, but the courts also have a role,
right? And
their role includes interpreting the law, applying it in particular cases, and giving it enforcing power. And their rules are binding on all of us. So they are also saying, people are saying that we also think the rulings of the court must be binding on the president. And in fact, if you look at the history of the Fourth Republic, we haven't done badly at all in that on that score. I remember in the early years of the Fourth Republic, there was a very politically contentious case, the 31st December case, where the practice of celebrating the anniversary of the 31st December coup was challenged. It was celebrated as a public holiday out of public funds. It was challenged in court, and the Supreme Court held it was unconstitutional to celebrate it as such. And even though the president at the time, President Rawlings, was quite upset with the ruling, and I remember that he called it a judicial coup d'etat. Nonetheless, they complied.
Exactly.
They complied. And I think overall, our presidents have done a pretty good job of complying with court rulings.
To the extent that the Constitution gives the president some bit of discretionary power, if you will, 296 would give it discretionary power to act, and which some say was used in the case of the Muntie 3 to grant presidential pardon. Where do we place the balance?
Well, the issue of the Muntie 3, I think, both branches, the judiciary has its role.
Right.
The president has its role.
Where do we meet? Where we draw
I
the far line?
would not say in the Muntie 3 case. I think that the issue is there isn't a lot. I mean, it's not been fully litigated. Like you said, it's probably still in court. But one could argue that that is not an example of a case where the president flouted a court order. The president does have his pardon power. The court does have its contempt powers. The court exercised its powers duly in the particular matter, and the persons were committed to jail on account of that. And the president, invoking his power that the Constitution allows him to pardon, also pardoned. So in that particular instance, it's not a case of the president. The president didn't say after the court had committed those 3 people that, hey, don't go and serve any sentence. You shouldn't disobey the court.
Right. It was after the court had
did its job,
and then it took it over from there.
And then it says, I too have a power in the Constitution to pardon, and I exercise that power. So that's why it's in court. Let's see what the court says about that.
Let's go now finally to the police. 88% say the police have the power or to demand obedience to the law.
Absolutely.
But some have also complained about the modus operandi of the police and say that, look, sometimes there's brute force. There's a video making rounds on social media where a driver supposed to be resisting arrest was kicked front, back, and center. People were asking, is that what we were talking about?
No. I think that it's important to separate what the people are saying here. They're recognizing the legitimate authority of the state acting through the police to enforce obedience to the law. That is, in fact, one of the primary functions and roles of a state, of government, is to enforce obedience to the law so that we will have peace and order. We would not have anything close to anarchy. So what the people are saying is that we recognize the police as the lawful, legitimate authority in the country with the power to enforce enforce obedience to the law. That, however, does not give the police license to act in disobedience of the law itself, because nothing in the law empowers the police to kick the citizen, to brutalize them. That is acting illegally, acting extrajudicially.
I mean, they usually say it's graduated force.
No,
I've heard them explain it so many times.
Well, I mean, there are situations where the police has lawful right to use force.
Okay.
Right? But those instances are very narrowly circumscribed. And, you know, the situation you just described to me, I haven't seen the video, but it appears to be a case where the police are almost in a brawl with a citizen. That is absolutely unacceptable. That's not an appropriate role for the police. The law is a very powerful tool, and when you are given the power to use it, to enforce obedience, that is sufficient. I mean, the police has a lot, you know, ordinarily, if it wasn't for the fact that they were wearing the authority of the state, you know, many of the people who are in the police force are not people ordinarily you would obey.
There are also instances where even though the police have the uniform, the crown, and everything else, you have people abuse them. And that's clear, blatant disregard.
Absolutely.
For what did the respondents say about? Did they say anything about it?
Well, no, not in that particular context. But I think, you know, what is important for us is that we have a citizenry that is quite alive to its understanding of the various roles of legitimate authority. And that is very important because you can't have a thriving, functioning democracy where people do not think that the police have lawful authority to enforce the law. So it's a very good and healthy sign that we have a democracy in which people think that, yes,
on a scale of 0 to 100, Prof, where would you place the rule of law if you're running a Likert scale, for example?
Well, the rule of law has a lot of things going into it. It does not mean only that the citizens...
Per what you have, the results that you have, 0 to 100, where would you place it?
It's a tough question. It's a tough question because, you know, we asked different questions to gauge different things.
Averagely, if you're looking at, you have 75, you have 90, you have 88, you have 87, you have 75. I've seen them. So they're all above 60. Where would you strike the median?
That's so when you say the rule of law, what do you mean?
The rule of law regarding the president's obedience to parliament, the president obedient to the law, the police ensuring that citizens obey, and the tax officers ensuring
but in the
all
same,
the things that you look at.
In the same survey, you get a large number of Ghanaians also saying that they do not believe that public officials, a majority of Ghanaians say that public officials and persons with influence and wealth are able to evade compliance with the law through their status, through their influence, through their connections. That undermines the rule of law. So there is also, at the same time that they're saying that they expect the president to obey parliament, they expect the president to obey the courts.
And all of it bulked together will give us what percentage in your view?
So you really
if you're running 100, 0 to 100, where does that place it? All of what you have found out, the analysis and everything.
Well, I because we didn't really try to ask that global question, that aggregated question.
I'm asking it now, on hindsight.
Then it's a personal opinion. You're asking me to venture a personal opinion. I think generally this is a law-abiding society, generally speaking. When you break it down into the specifics, yes, there are huge gaps in terms of compliance, especially at the levels of maybe officialdom and people of influence and with status. But roughly speaking, I think we will score above 50.
50.
We will score above 50.
Above 50, 57? 52, 55?
I can't do that. Maybe about a middling 50, 55.
55, great. Let me ask you this, Divergent, that we've dealt with this, but recently we've heard about the U.S. military base and all of that. Care to share a thought quickly?
That's that's an ambush.
A minute or two, forgive me.
Well, I know that it's in the news. I don't know if we know enough about it. And sometimes I think that these kinds of issues come up because of government's lack of transparency about these things. You know, if information was adequately shared in a timely fashion, in a transparent fashion, at the appropriate time and forum, some of these things would not happen. I mean, so I have heard, for example, that this is a document marked secret.
Okay.
And it was supposed to be a cabinet document, and it's in the public realm. You know, at what point was it going to be shared? Okay. I mean, generally, I think, you know, we've had lots of cooperation with various militaries from different countries going back many years. Okay. So I haven't seen the document. I don't know the details of it. I've just read it on social media. Is it just continuity of a relationship that we've had with the American military over the years? Right. Is it an upgrade of it? Is it a downgrade of it? I mean, I do not know. Okay. You know, but I think that there is nothing really surprising to me about the Ghana military having a relationship of sorts with.
You don't think that's trading off our sovereignty?
Oh, but we've had trainings with military of different countries. We send them to them. We used to send our officers to Sandhurst. It used to be the place where you got really stamped with. So this has been going on for a long time.
This may not be just a partnership. It's a setting up of a military base, and we do know that
I don't know what it is. I don't know if a military base is a term of art, right? When does having an installation in a country constitute a base? Okay. I don't know those things. Right? I'm not a military.
If we're going strictly by the Oxford Dictionary, the definition of what the military base is, we're installing stuff and training people.
But training has been going on between Ghana military. Who do you think trains our soldiers? Where do you think they get their armory? Where do you think they get you know, do we manufacture arms?
No, we don't.
So if we got a donation of arms from a country, is that undermining our sovereignty? You know,
Professor H. Kwesi Prempeh, thank you very much. It's been a wonderful time with you. He's the Executive Director of the CDD Ghana office here, and he's been sharing his thoughts about the Afro Barometer. We've been digesting the sector on the rule of law, and of course we spoke about the U.S. military base there, all the issues arriving. We'll be back to wrap up the show here on NewDay. Stay with us.
Anyway, guys, it's time for us to wrap up. Yes, what John said, you tell us in the background.
John is wishing Derek Kofi happy birthday. Right. Derek, your birthday is today. This is from Joanne here at TV.
We don't know why they're wishing you.
She's your sweetheart, but she says happy birthday.
And also to you, Elombini and Theophilus Light Kumsing, it's your birthday today. And yesterday was Mr. Radio, right?
Yes.
And yesterday also was this young man. Nice. He's an ardent viewer.
Oh,
so he was trying to tell me how old he was. He is 2 years. See, so he started like that, and then he tried to fix it like that. And then he eventually fixed it.
Stable. Nice,
you know?
nice,
so
nice,
he's telling me
he's 2 years.
Elikem Phelps stays 2 years. Yes, he says I'm 2 years.
And happy belated birthday to Mrs. Selina Brown of Achimota Hospital, one of the administrators. We're grateful to God for your lives.
Okay,
all of you stay blessed. We'll see you same time tomorrow.
Yes, we're wrapping up. The weekend is starting tomorrow, and so.
And it's midweek for you.
You know, my mind starts tomorrow. Once I've finished today, it means my weekend takes off.
Right, but he'll be here anyway. Don't worry. You'll still see him tomorrow.
Deepest condolence to the family of the King of Osode and High Life Colossus, CK Man.
Uncle CK Man.
Yes. He left us yesterday to go on to the other side. 83 years. Nice. May he rest in peace. I
don't like the way. We'll do a throwback with him.
Yes, but I don't like the way our libraries are on fire.
Johnny, I told Derek that Joanne says happy birthday, and I don't know whether she is your sweetheart. Joanne just sent me a message and says, "Oh, we are only friends." So,
but how do we know?
Disclaimer.
How do we know?
Joanne is denying you.
Somewhere she doesn't want to.
Or she's denying you on your birthday. Can you imagine?
How do we confirm that you are friends or not? Anyway, we'll see you guys tomorrow. Right. Tomorrow is Thursday. Be good. Thanks to Grandpa, as always, making us spectacular.
And GTP.
Timeless.
That's right.
Sexy girl, you got my attention.